Hey everyone, so today I'm going to focus on one of my favorite houses of all time, and that is Serge Lutens. I admire this house because I see Serge Lutens as a true artist in that he has a very clear vision of what he wants each fragrance to smell like. There is like a distinct story that each fragrance tells. And also the way that Christopher Sheldrake and the other perfumers who have worked with his brand execute his ideas is just masterful. Christopher Sheldrake is probably my favorite perfumer from this house. In fact, I did do a pair of videos that focused on his work with Serge Lutens last year. So you'll notice that the fragrances that I have in my collection were all created by Christopher Sheldrake. And there's just something about how he executes Serge Lutens' ideas that I really enjoy. And something that's interesting about this brand is that it is owned by a huge company. In this case, it's Shiseido, which is actually a skincare company I do like. But even though it is owned by this huge corporation, I think they did a really great job with trying to protect Serge Lutens' vision with what he wants to do with this brand. So I really appreciate that. So my collection is smaller compared to others who have featured this brand in their videos, and part of it is I only want to own fragrances that I truly love. Since I did my Christopher Sheldrake videos last year, I have tried more and more from this brand, and even though I have discovered a lot that I admire and that I think are really great pieces of art, the ones that I own are the ones that I will treasure for years to come. They are ones that I think if I were to run out of them, I'd probably repurchase them. I really adore these. I think they suit my taste quite well. And I actually think they are a pretty good representation of the things that Serge Lutens offers. I don't just have all florals or all woods. I kind of have a variety. So hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of what this brand has if you haven't tried this brand before. So let's begin with my least favorite from this house, and it's actually in my only mini bottle from this brand. It's Fleurs. And this is ranked as my least favorite of the bunch only because I do wish that the orange blossom came out more in this fragrance. It is called Fleurs, so I expect more of that flower in this. So even though I can detect it, I actually think this is more of a tuberose fragrance on my skin. And tuberose is something that can be hit or miss for me. In this fragrance, I actually do like it. And what really stands out in this fragrance is the cumin. To me, when I smell this, it's a very sensual white floral scent. It's almost as if I'm picturing someone who is kind of wearing these white florals on their bare skin, and maybe they're in the nude. So there is something very sensual about the cumin. This can be a little bit challenging for some people to wear if you're not a fan of cumin. I am actually not someone who loves that note. It's still something that I struggle with from time to time. But for some reason in the summer, when it's super hot, the cumin isn't as prominent. It's just there to kind of add this level of sensuality to it, and it makes it a little bit thicker and sexy. It adds a little bit of that dirtiness. Otherwise, I think the white florals would be a little bit too innocent. So the cumin, I think, is necessary in this particular fragrance. Next, let's talk about one of my favorite tobacco fragrances, and it's Chergui. When I was starting to watch YouTube videos about fragrances, I noticed that this was often talked about. I think that was probably maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago. This was probably one of the more popular ones from this house, and I could see why. This came out before a bunch of other brands had released their own tobacco fragrances, like Tobacco Vanille or Herod from Parfums de Marly. I think this kind of had an influence on other houses, although it's definitely not the first tobacco fragrance that has been released. But Chergui, I adore this because it's almost unusual and it smells different depending on who wears it. So I'll describe what it smells like on my skin, and it's actually very different from what I get from paper. So on my skin, I definitely get the tobacco, I get the dry hay, but I get a lot more iris when it's on my skin. I don't get as much of it on paper. I guess there's something about my skin that kind of pulls out purple florals. So it's very floral on my skin, but still smoky from the tobacco. And there is quite a bit of amber too, but the amber comes out more on my husband's skin. So I just think it's very interesting how this can smell so different depending on the wearer. To me, this is more of a special occasion wintry scent. I think this would be way too heavy for the warmer months. I have tried to wear it in the warmer months and it can be a little bit headache inducing because it is quite powerful. Even with the newer formulation, I think it's still quite strong. Let's talk a bit about that. So you'll notice that almost all of my bottles have this older packaging. And the reason why is because I've just chosen to buy from this house or buy secondhand. And I just prefer how this label looks like compared to the newer ones like this one. So that's just a personal taste for me. I know some people look for the older fragrances because they like the older formulation. I don't see, or I don't detect as much of a significant difference between the older version and the newer ones. But then again, I haven't smelled every single one from this house and compared properly. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out because you'll notice that I have the older bottles here. Next up I have Datura Noir. And this is probably my favorite beachy tuberose fragrance. It took me a while to find a fragrance that fit that profile. I have tried Blondt from Tom Ford. I've tried Beach Walk from Maison Margiela. I've tried the Estee Lauder ones. So many from other brands. And there's just something off about the other ones I've tried. But this is the one that I felt like fit my taste. I enjoyed it the first time I smelled it. And it's one that really changes depending on the temperature. The slightest change in the temperature really makes a difference with what this smells like on my skin. I prefer this on the hottest of days because the coconut really comes out. So if you hate coconut, you probably won't like this. But I think the coconut along with the almond note that's in this really add this creamy texture to the white florals that are in this. So this is tuberose forward. I don't know what Datura smells like. I don't think I've tried any other fragrance that has that flower. And I've never smelled the actual flower itself in real life. I think it's a poisonous flower. But smelling this fragrance, it doesn't really give me the same vibe that I might get from something that would smell poisonous. To me, it's a very friendly fragrance. It's very alluring. It kind of draws people in because of that slightly gourmand facet that it has. And I would wear this on summer nights out. If I were on the beach, I would totally wear this too. I think it is appropriate for nighttime, but I have worn it in the daytime too. And yeah, as I said, there's something just very friendly about this and very alluring. Next is the only Gratte-Ciel bottle I have, the Skyscraper bottle. So this is Shen. So I think this may have been sold in the bell jar before. So this one, okay, actually no, let me talk about the bottle first. I hate how the bottle looks like in pictures. I can't photograph this to save my life, at least in a way that would make it look good. But I promise you, if you held it in your hand and actually see it up close, it's quite a high quality bottle. It feels very luxurious, but I also don't like storing this. It's just so tall and it stands out compared to the other bottles I have. So I wish it came in the other bottles like this one, but I will make do with it. So Shen, This is probably my favorite woody fragrance from this house. Shen, translated to English, is oak. So this is kind of like the ode to the oak tree. But it's interesting because I get similarities to other fragrances from this house. I don't remember the notes that are listed in this, but I get quite a prominent hint of immortelle, which kind of adds like this sappy quality to it, as if there's sap dripping down from the oak tree. So it is a little bit sweet. It's one that I much prefer after waiting a few hours. I think the dry down is more beautiful than the opening. The opening can be a little bit spicier, and bits of that cumin aspect of immortelle comes out a little bit when I initially spray it. But after it dries down, you really get this idea of the oak tree and how tall it is and the hardness of the wood. It almost smells like a wise fragrance, and I don't know if it's because that's a trait that I often associate with that type of tree, but there's nothing foolish or juvenile about this at all. It's a fragrance that's very sure of itself. It's almost minimalistic in a way because there's nothing, or there's not too much going on in it. Again, it just focuses on that oak tree. It's kind of like a soliflor equivalent of a tree, and I really like that about this fragrance. Next is my favorite soliflor from this house. It's à la Nuit, and it's one that I wear for myself. So this fragrance was one of the first ones I've tried from this house. I have seen reviews about it. I know Luca Turin and Tanya Sanchez had said this is death by jasmine. So I don't know, they probably don't care too much for it because it is probably very simplistic, but to me this is a gold standard jasmine fragrance. And it's not for everyone though. It has the bitter trait of some jasmine flowers and jasmine tea. I have mentioned before that it's almost like you oversteeped a cup of jasmine tea. Yeah, that bitterness really comes out, but I actually don't mind it. This is a soliflor, as I mentioned, so again, like I've said about some of the other fragrances, it is quite minimalistic, but it kind of changes as I wear it. It starts off as very green. The bitterness is more prominent in the beginning, and then as it dries down, it kind of turns creamier. And I prefer wearing it in the summer and spring, the hot spring days, because the heat kind of brings out that creaminess that I like. It kind of has that hint of, it's either like a coconutty or vanilla type of note. It's one of the more soothing fragrances, I think, that I have. I do like the smell of jasmine. It's not something that a lot of my close family members or my husband really likes. I don't know why. But it's a flower that I really like. In fact, when I'm taking my walks, I have some neighbors that have jasmine bushes, and I really love how that smells like. And this kind of smells a bit like that. So I enjoy the naturalistic quality of this. There was a bit of time where I took a break from this fragrance because someone that I know wore this kind of like as their signature scent. And it's someone that I'm not particularly close with, so I just needed a break from it because I wanted to kind of distance myself from this smell because I associated it with that person. But I think I'm at this point now where I can wear it again. And when I returned to this fragrance, it was just like a breath of fresh air. I really, really like it. And I think it really showcases Christopher Sheldrake and Serge Lutens' skills when it comes to creating white florals. My second favorite from this whole collection is Daim Blondt. It's my latest purchase and I love this so much. It's so weird. Like, it's such a strange fragrance. It's not going to be for everyone. It's strange because it has suede and then it has this apricot smell there's a tartness about it that might be off-putting to some people. And then there's iris, like there's this random iris note in it. But I think all those notes put together kind of create this natural smelling fragrance. There's nothing perfumey about this at all. And I think the quirkiness kind of fits me on those days when I just want to do whatever the hell I want. And I want to dress however I want. You know, some people might say there's not going to be a lot of occasions to wear this. I've worn it when I was just out and about. I wear it to sleep. I will find an excuse just to put this on. It's kind of like an eccentric woman, I guess. I don't know. It's quite a character. It's one that took me a while to find. I had a sample of it from Vivi, and I had a feeling I was gonna like it even before I tested it out. So I could have been okay blind buying it, but you know, I want to test things out before buying a full bottle. And I loved it immediately. It was a love at first sniff. It was one that my husband really, really enjoyed smelling on me too. And it just took me a while to find this bottle because it's now put in the bell jar bottle, and I didn't want that bottle, and I like this label, and those bottles are just crazy expensive. So I had to be very patient, and finally when I saw this put on sale on eBay, I jumped on that opportunity. So I'm so happy that I have this fragrance now. In fact, after I bought it, I felt like my Serge Lutens collection was complete. This was like the last one I really, really wanted to own out of all the ones I've tried out. Last but not least is Santal Majuscule. I have it in the newer bottle. And, you know, it was one that I didn't really look to try to find the older packaging for. What had happened was, even though I had tested this years ago, I went into ZGO Perfumery, I think it was January of last year, so 2020. And I wanted to test this out on skin when I was at the store. And then I just kept sniffing myself when I tested it out, and I bought the bottle right away from there. So that's how I ended up with this. Oh my God, it's so good. So this is not a benchmark sandalwood fragrance, even though I love it. It isn't my favorite from this bunch, but it is definitely not like the gold standard of what a sandalwood fragrance should be. The sandalwood in this smells completely different from other sandalwood fragrances I've tried. So usually if I'm gonna try out a sandalwood fragrance, I expect it to kind of have a certain type of characteristic to it. Usually it's kind of like a watery, woodsy smell. Not watered down, it's almost as if someone magically liquefied woods into like a silvery, thick, liquidy substance. But that's not the feeling I get from this. The woods in this is so dusty. It's very dry. It's more like getting the shavings of sandalwood, and then you get dustings from cacao too. The chocolate or cacao note I get from this is more of like cacao powder. And there is rose in this too, which is one of my favorite notes. But the rose in this is more in the background on my skin. I get more of that dusty woodiness and the cacao. There is a little bit more going on in this. I think there's a little bit of resins from amber maybe. But it's more of like this almost edible wooden fragrance. I think about carpentry when I smell this because of the dustiness that I get from it. But then the cacao kind of adds like this almost gourmand trait to it. I think it's a very sexy fragrance. It's easy for me to wear it during the winter and autumn months. I put this on like for work. I put this on when just going out for fun. It doesn't project too much, which is why I feel comfortable wearing it to work. But yeah, it's a staple in my collection. I'm gonna get one more whiff of it. It's So good. Love it. So those are my Serge Lutens fragrances. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite from this house is. And let me know if you've tried any of these too. I'd really love to know. So thank you very much for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.